You are listening to How AI Will Shape Our Future, Understand Artificial Intelligence, and Stay Ahead by Pedro Uría-Recio, narrated by Will Stoff. Chapter 24. China and the Cold War of Artificial Intelligence. Human thinking has to be careful not to run away with itself and not to liberate capacities that can wind up in the destruction of humanity. And that's where the United States and China have a special obligation because they're in a special position to make progress scientifically. But how to limit the possible interpretations and applications is a challenge for each country and then for the countries between themselves. Henry Kissinger, American diplomat, political scientist, and politician, in an interview with the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change, 2023. Despite starting later than the U.S. and Japan, China's AI development has achieved remarkable milestones in recent years, solidifying its role as a significant global player in AI. More than simply looking to deploy AI in its own society, China's ambition is to play a pivotal role in the world by using technology to spread its influence and its mercantilist values. Much like Japan's post-World War II behavior was marked by industrial development and policy cohesion in an effort to rebuild its wealth and catch up with the U.S., China sees the same opportunity in the use of AI, and the CCP, Chinese Communist Party, as its single-party central government has embarked in a direction that is as clear as it is concerning to the rest of the world. The CCP has been a central force in shaping the AI landscape by implementing regulations, infusing substantial funding, strategically prioritizing AI, and actively coordinating private sector participation around its core values and AI policies. This concentrated effort has successfully driven China's AI development on a global scale, as we will discuss in this chapter. China's ambition for world domination in AI became publicly evident in 2017, when it introduced the Next Generation AI Development Plan. This AI plan is a comprehensive roadmap outlining China's strategic vision to become a global AI leader in both core research and applications. China's strategic blueprint, however, triggered concerns in the U.S., setting the stage for what is now referred to as the AI Cold War. In Chapters 6 and 9, we described both how AI models are trained and the central importance of data in progressing AI. The CCP wants to build its AI program using not only the data of its own citizens, but also the data of people from other countries. Highly publicized rose with the West over scaled mobile applications with hundreds of millions of users, such as TikTok, that extract personal cell phone and other data without permission, violate the laws of other countries while compromising national security. We note that the CCP also controls the world's largest biometric database, and there is a high probability that it has your data as well, a concerning topic we will discuss in this chapter. Overall, the U.S. and China fiercely compete for AI supremacy across critical domains like semiconductors, 5G technology, AI ethics, and regulations. It increasingly appears that in the future there will be two distinct and isolated AI ecosystems led by the world's two preeminent economic, military, and AI powers. As time progresses, other nations might need to make critical choices about which system to align with, which carries significant implications for global AI standards and governance and the values of each society. The following pages reveal how China's AI rose to challenge the U.S. and where it is heading. Deng Xiaoping and the birth of AI in China. A pivotal moment in China's history occurred in 1978 when Deng Xiaoping assumed leadership. This marked the genesis of a transformative journey to reshape China into a modern society, a society in which AI easily becomes a core part of an overarching transformation concept. This transformation revolved around bolstering a market economy and recognizing science and technology as paramount drivers of progress. It was within this context that China's foray into the world of AI began. In 1981, a crucial step was taken with the establishment of the Chinese Association for AI, CAAI. Then, in 1987, Tsinghua University published the first AI research in China. However, the initial strides were slow and arduous for China, lagging behind its Western counterparts. The nation grappled with resource limitations and a talent shortage. Yet China's response was resolute and bold. The government dispatched scholars overseas for AI training and channeled government funding into research initiatives. That was a deliberate strategy, albeit a gradual one, to ensure the development of human capital in the country. It was not until the early 2000s that China started to significantly increase the number of government-sponsored research projects and its funding for AI. In 2006, China officially committed to AI development, incorporating it into the Medium and Long-Term Plan for the Development of Science and Technology, 2006 to 2020. This strategic plan underscored the imperative for China to develop comprehensive research across various computer science domains, including AI. The objective of the plan was to establish a robust foundation in both theoretical research and technology development that would enable China to rapidly advance its information technology industry. 2017. A strategic AI plan and a national AI team. Since Xi Jinping assumed power in 2013, China has doubled down on its focus on AI development and has become steadfast in pursuing the ambitious goal of emerging as a global leader in AI research. The aim is to harness the potential of AI as the primary catalyst for the nation's industrial growth and economic transformation. Within this mindset, in 2017, the Chinese government unveiled its ambitious next-generation AI development plan, a strategic roadmap designed to propel the nation to the forefront of global AI leadership. This comprehensive plan firmly positioned AI as a strategic technology for China, emphasizing its transformative potential across multiple sectors of the economy. The plan also aimed at achieving global technological supremacy by consistently supporting fundamental AI research programs and new AI technologies. It focused government resources and funding on selected pivotal AI projects and included measures to expedite the commercialization of AI technologies while ensuring government oversight. Lastly, the plan promoted collaboration across government, the private sector, the academia, and the military. To achieve these objectives, 3 stages were established. In the first stage, concluding in 2020, China aimed to advance the development of AI models and compete globally in this field. The second stage, by 2025, involved making significant strides in AI technology and theoretical research, as well as laying the necessary legal and ethical foundations. Finally, in the third stage, by 2030, China aspires to lead globally in AI, developing multiple cutting-edge innovations and setting up a robust training system for professionals in this field. As stated by the plan, by 2030, China's AI theories, technologies, and applications should achieve world-leading levels, making China the world's primary AI innovation center, achieving visible results in intelligent economy and intelligent society applications, and laying an important foundation for becoming a leading innovation-style nation and an economic power. In addition to unveiling their formal plan in 2017, the Chinese government announced the establishment of a national AI team. This hand-picked and long-cultivated national AI team consists of prominent companions given the responsibility for developing specific AI subsectors, such as voice generation or facial recognition. Initially, the national AI team consisted of Alibaba Cloud, Baidu, Tencent, and iFlyTech, each with defined roles. Alibaba Cloud in smart cities, Baidu in autonomous vehicles, Tencent in medical intelligence, and iFlyTech in voice recognition. Since its inception, the national team has expanded both in the number of participating companies and the scope of their designated AI specializations. SenseTime joined the team in 2018, enhancing its capabilities in computer vision. Furthermore, in 2019, the team experienced significant growth, welcoming 10 additional companies, mainly industry giants, into its ranks. Huawei in telecommunications, Yitu in visual computing, Xiaomi in home automation, Pengyan in financial intelligence, Hikvision in video perception, JD.com in smart supply chain, Megvii in visual perception, Kihu 360 in security and intelligent brain, and TAL Education Group in education. China's soaring AI industry since 2017. After the 2017 government policies, China's AI industry experienced explosive growth, becoming a multi-billion-dollar sector in recent years. By 2021, its value surged to approximately $23 billion, with projections soaring to $62 billion by 2025. Public investments have been strategically channeled into fundamental and applied research, bolstering AI projects in the private sector through state-backed venture capital funds. This rapid AI development in China has left an indelible mark across various facets of society, spanning socio-economic, military, and political domains. Some of the sectors most intensively pulsed by the government's AI programs include agriculture, transportation, lodging, food services, and manufacturing. Notable functionalities given focus in the government's policy directives include biotech SynBio, facial recognition, autonomous vehicles, quantum computing, and medical intelligence. The Chinese government has earmarked 14 cities and 1 county as experimental development zones to spearhead the growth of the high-tech industry. The specific area of AI research and development vary from city to city, aligning with their unique industrial sectors and local ecosystems. For instance, Zhejiang and Guangdong on the coast are making substantial strides in practical commercial AI applications, while Wuhan focuses on SynBio and the education sector. Suzhou, with its notable manufacturing industry, is directing efforts toward industrial AI, automation, and other AI infrastructure. As a result, specific indicators emerged that suggest China was gaining an edge over the U.S. According to the World Economic Forum, as of 2017, 2/3 of global AI investments were pouring into China. Moreover, China surged ahead in AI-related research production, amassing a staggering 43,000 documents in 2021, nearly double the output of the U.S. Moreover, China has garnered acclaim with 7,000 of the most cited documents, surpassing the U.S. by a substantial margin of 70%. One of China's formidable advantages in AI lies in its vast population, an abundant source of data for businesses and researchers, and for algorithm training. This wealth of data has been instrumental, particularly in applications like facial recognition, where data collected from residents has fueled AI training. Racial homogeneity has also been helpful, as AI models have to be able to ascertain subtle differences in faces to be valuable. China is well aware of this competitive advantage and has traditionally had a lax approach to data protection. But that, too, is changing. Similar to Western countries, China has made significant efforts to strengthen data privacy and ethics within its own borders. In 2021, the Personal Information Protection Law, PIPL, was introduced, serving as China's counterpart to the GDPR. AI ethics also gained prominence with the introduction of the new generation of AI ethics code, also in 2021, which places a strong emphasis on protecting domestic user rights, ensuring privacy, and promoting the secure utilization of AI technologies inside China. The Cold War for AI supremacy. China's ambitious AI development plan of 2017 marked a turning point with far-reaching consequences for the U.S. and its allies. The plan ignited increasing tensions between China and the U.S., spawning a new geopolitical rivalry, often referred to as the AI Cold War. In contrast to the Cold War of the 20th century, defined by nuclear armament and ideological clashes, this contemporary Cold War centers on AI technology and the mercantilist economic ideology of the Chinese. It presents a narrative of economic competition, where technological innovation determines the geopolitical standing of nations. China's distinct approach to AI development poses formidable challenges for the U.S., particularly regarding China's authoritarian applications of AI, such as its social credit system, SCS, which we will address later in this section, and the active deployment of AI in military contexts. Like the U.S., China is leveraging AI to improve military intelligence and hasten decision-making on the battlefield. China is actively exploring autonomous land, sea, underwater, aerial vehicles, and cyber warfare operations. Unsurprisingly, given its history of intellectual property theft, where it has not been able to appropriate it and wants ongoing access to American technology and IP, China has made strategic investments in the U.S. AI market, particularly in AI companies involved in defense. From 2010 to 2017, Chinese venture capital investments in U.S. AI firms totaled around $1.3 billion. China's military use of AI raises concerns in the U.S. about its impact on global stability and the escalation of existing tensions. The apprehension that China might outpace the U.S. in AI has dominated discussions on technology policy in Washington. China has emerged as a formidable contender, producing top-tier AI research comparable to the U.S. and integrating this technology into its economy and internal surveillance systems, such as the SCS. In the race to develop advanced AI algorithms, China has rapidly closed the gap with U.S. research labs, often achieving comparable results within just a few years. The escalating tensions between the two nations prompted the U.S. government to adopt policies aimed at curbing the advancement of AI in China, mainly through the implementation of export controls targeting chips essential for training and running AI algorithms, as well as the technologies or raw materials to manufacture these chips. These sanctions coincided with former President Donald Trump's trade war, which had created a geopolitical climate conducive to these types of restrictions. Additionally, semiconductors are essentially contentious in the AI Cold War due to Taiwan's pivotal role in semiconductor production and the escalating likelihood of armed conflict, or at least a blockade between the mainland and the island. The semiconductor supply chain is characterized by its high concentration on a limited number of significant players in very specific geographies and its global interconnectedness, making it vulnerable to trade restrictions, supply chain disruptions, and semiconductor shortages. Notably, approximately 70% of the world's semiconductors are manufactured in or pass through Taiwan, home to the world's largest chip producer, TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. Following this rationale, the U.S. government implemented export restrictions on semiconductors bound for China. This move not only harmed China's capabilities to design and manufacture advanced AI chips, but, more crucially, hindered its ability to use imported chips in the AI development programs of Chinese companies. The U.S. also successfully persuaded European governments to establish similar restrictions, as in the case of the Netherlands-based company ASML, Advanced Semiconductor Materials Lithography, which stopped exporting semiconductor manufacturing technologies to China. Additionally, the U.S. and the EU leveraged the narrative of the AI Cold War to curtail the acquisition of 5G technology from Huawei and ZTE within their respective territories. Given that 5G heavily relies on semiconductors, this further complicated the technological rivalry between East and West. The trade constraints placed on semiconductor exports to China reverberated through supply chains. China retaliated by limiting semiconductor exports from China into the U.S. and Europe, sparking concerns within U.S. and European industries. In response, the U.S. government allocated $250 billion in government subsidies to support local technology and manufacturing sectors, with a specific focus on semiconductors, AI, and quantum computing. Similarly, the EU enacted legislation that subsidized semiconductor production within the EU. Beyond borders, China's AI-driven spy game. The AI Cold War escalated beyond commercial considerations into espionage and national security aspects. Alongside increases in COVID cases in 2021, a Chinese military-affiliated company reached out to local U.S. leadership and offered to set up testing labs in several U.S. states. In exchange, the Beijing Genomics Institute, a Chinese government-affiliated firm and a major global player in genomics research, gained access to the DNA of those tested. The U.S. government advised states to decline the offer, and they did. In the meantime, the Beijing Genomics Institute had established labs in at least 16 countries to collect citizens' DNA information. China now has the world's largest DNA database, which includes both its own citizens and populations from other countries. Human rights organizations from around the world claim that the CCP government uses DNA testing for racial profiling and security objectives, such as monitoring and identifying Uyghur Muslims, an ethno-religious minority with millions of people held in the so-called Xinjiang internment camps. U.S. officials add that DNA collection by Chinese companies should be viewed as part of a concerted attempt to vacuum up the records of millions of U.S. citizens, with many of these efforts violating U.S. law. Most Americans have probably had their data compromised by the cyber intelligence units of the Chinese government and Chinese military intelligence, said April Falcon Doss, a former National Security Agency employee and author of the book Cyber Privacy: Who Has Your Data and Why You Should Care. According to Falcon Doss, China is gathering a great deal of personal data about its citizens in order to help its espionage activities and develop its economy and its technology. While the U.S. and China actively spy on each other, China has deliberately strengthened its active, relentless pursuit of the personal data of individual Americans, using AI in its espionage and data appropriation activity. Since 2014, China has been accused of stealing large amounts of data, including customer records from Marriott, 400 million, the credit bureau Equifax, 145 million, the health insurance company Anthem, 78 million, and the U.S. Office of Personnel Management, 21 million. The latter included classified files on government employees and contractors, such as fingerprints and security clearance. Armed with this specific information fed into unsupervised algorithm models, such as we discussed in Chapter 6, it would not be difficult for a bad actor to predict with high levels of accuracy who in a population of people with credit problems could be targeted and likely accept the bribe to engage in theft of industrial secrets, or knowing where you travel inside the U.S. or abroad, where to make contact with you, or when to target your family with subtle online email campaigns, when you are likely not to be there with them. The U.S. government has since banned Huawei, China's largest telecommunications equipment maker, from installing gear in America's telecommunications infrastructure, and has deported hundreds of students whose purpose in coming to the U.S. under the guise of study was to access technical and scientific information. The Justice Department filed charges against Chinese nationals in various cases, but the majority of them are still in China and thus not within U.S. law enforcement jurisdiction. It is worth noting that many of the accused serve in the Chinese military. China's social credit system, more dysfunctional than dystopian. One of China's most iconic and contentious AI-related mega-projects is the social credit system, SCS, a national initiative developed by the government to assess the trustworthiness of businesses, individuals, and government institutions. In the 2000s, widespread scams, financial fraud, and public safety scandals started to gain notoriety in China. Notable incidents included instances of contaminated milk for infants being callously exported to other countries. In response, the Chinese government began contemplating the creation of a system to regulate businesses in areas such as financial fraud, intellectual property, and food safety with the aim of enhancing public trust. The core idea revolved around regulatory agencies sharing information to compile national block lists for noncompliance, leading to punishments and public naming and shaming to discourage undesirable behavior. Traditional methods of controlling behavior were deemed inadequate in dealing with the challenges posed by China's burgeoning population and a rapidly changing socio-economic landscape. As China transitioned into a more technologically advanced era, the idea of leveraging data and technology to assess trustworthiness and control behavior gained prominence. Inspiration for this effort came from credit rating systems in other nations, including FICO, Equifax, and TransUnion in the U.S. In 2013, the Supreme People's Court established a debtor blacklist called List of Dishonest Persons, which imposed restrictions on debt defaulters, such as barring them from private schools and luxury spending. Subsequently, the government outlined plans for a comprehensive SCS in 2014, and a national pilot involving 8 credit rating firms was launched that year. In 2015, licenses were granted to 8 companies, including industry giants like Alibaba and Tencent, to work on different aspects of the system, including service operations, credit risk algorithms, and operations and management software. It is worth noting that every society has some form of control over debt management. The Arab world still maintains debtors' prisons. Western nations have sophisticated credit access and loan pricing models. And in North Asian societies, shaming and loss of face still hold sway. The implementation of the SCS unfolded in stages, starting with a series of pilot projects in selected cities and regions beginning in 2017. These trials allowed authorities to test different aspects of the system, By 2018, the SES had been officially rolled out nationwide, but there were still many challenges to solve. The implementation involved collaboration between government agencies, technology companies, and financial institutions, creating a complex network of involved parties. Local governments played a crucial role in enforcing the SES. They had the authority to design and implement their social credit evaluation methods based on local priorities and concerns. This decentralized approach allowed for flexibility in addressing regional issues while adhering to the broader framework established by the central government, maintaining a top-down authoritarian bent to the entire program. While the Chinese government presented the SES as a tool to promote trust and integrity, the definition of trust and integrity was not as we would conceive abstractly in the West. Rather, it was a reflection of Chinese communist values, which is exactly what we should expect. What the CCP meant was that trust equates to conformity to what the government says one should do, and integrity equates to the degree to which one does what the government says one should do. In short, trust and integrity have no definition other than what the government says it does, and it centers on following the rules. Breaking it is a sin, and the public confessional takes the place of the private one. It is all simply the rules of the societal OS, operating system, as a method of control over people. It is worth noting that China has no official religion and, thus, no spiritual system that holds behavioral or ethical standards to preside over or guide behavior. Rather, one might characterize their societal OS as commercial Machiavellianism, and hence, this type of system was needed as a rule arbiter to protect Chinese citizens or companies from malicious players. This tool faced severe criticism internationally, some of it founded and some less so. Western media portrayed the SES as a massive surveillance system that monitored data points such as financial responsibility, adherence to laws, social interactions, social media activity, online behavior, individual opinions. Individual works of created art or self-expression, and even recordings from millions of street cameras. The system then purported to assign a numerical score to each person or company, which reflected its overall social creditworthiness. Positive actions, such as timely repayment of loans, voluntary community service, behaving morally, and not speaking out against the government, contributed to a higher score. In contrast, adverse actions such as defaulting on loans or engaging in fraudulent activities, fighting publicly, and expressing an opinion contrary to the government's official position on any matter, resulted in a lower score. According to the media, individuals with low credit scores faced consequences that impacted their ability to secure employment, access education, and even obtain essential services such as health care access. Former U.S. Vice President Mike Pence famously labeled the SES in 2018 as an Orwellian system premised on controlling virtually every facet of human life in 2018. Although it is conceivable that the Chinese government initially intended to establish a coherent nationwide credit scoring system, the reality is that the SES has evolved far from that, much of it dysfunctional. As of Q1 2024, a unified SES or score does not exist across all of China. Instead, social credit is defined by a collection of fragmented policies and systems that focus more on businesses than on individuals. These include block lists for debtors determined by specific court orders, financial credit reporting, sectoral block lists that include non-compliant companies and their owners, as well as no-fly and no-ride lists based on instances of misconduct by train or plane passengers. Falling short of the mark has happened in no small part due to the practical realities of organizing data for use by AI algorithms. We note that the practical implementation of the social credit system faced many operational challenges, particularly at the local level, that prevented it from becoming a coherent nationwide system. Local governments encountered difficulties in setting up individual scoring systems due to data silos, inconsistent standards, and bureaucratic resistance. The decentralized nature of the system resulted in hundreds of different versions, leading to a lack of cohesion and functionality. Numerous local pilot schemes deviated significantly from the original concept, prompting interventions from the central government to rein in extreme applications that lacked a legal basis. 2 decades later, China's social credit system is more dysfunctional than dystopian. That said, our view is that it remains clear that mass data on citizens is being collected, and a public score per se is not strictly needed to act on the data. Moreover, nothing would stop this kind of system from being used in the future as a Machiavellian tool for social and economic engineering if the CCP acts on the lessons learned from its failure to implement the SES to its first vision. For example, profiling genes in an attempt to predict and act on who is likely to cause a crime, determining which two people are most likely to have a successful marriage, enforcing that, preventing the birth of children who are likely to have defects or physical or intellectual limitations and thus a long-term net drain on social resources, and choosing the professions of people for them and tracking them to that at the earliest age, which is no different than how the CCP already chooses its leadership today. The more data it has and the stronger the algorithm, the closer the predictive models approach 100% accuracy. For the individual, it is a Faustian bargain, but for the collective society, more efficient use of resources, lower crime, stronger human capital, and better social decision-making. As we highlight through the book, AI is inherently networked and collectivist and not atomistic. Lastly, we further note that the U.S. government has also collected personal data on its citizens, co-opting major telecommunications operators like AT&T for decades to review call records without probable cause to do so. We also note that monitoring in the U.S. at the same functional level as the CCP program has been done via big corporations to whom people regularly and freely give their data. With the same end result, the only real difference is in the techniques deployed by each country. Generative AI under the core values of socialism. Another emblematic technology mega-project in China is the Great Firewall of China. In the 1990s, as the Internet emerged, the leadership of China became concerned that widespread access to information could jeopardize government and social stability. Consequently, in the early 2000s, China established a sophisticated online censorship system to regulate access to foreign websites and censor local content. This system aims to manage information flow within the country and is known in the West as the Great Firewall of China. Most Western Internet services, including Facebook, Google, Netflix, and naturally ChatGPT, remain inaccessible to the majority of Chinese. Local platforms strictly regulate content, preemptively employing moderators and AI algorithms to delete any undesirable material. In 2020, China's internet giants, including Tencent and Alibaba, aligned even more closely with the CCP after the government took minority ownership stakes in these firms and got actively involved in their day-to-day operations. Today, confronted with the rise of AI, China grapples again with the same challenge, striking a delicate balance between nurturing innovation essential for economic growth and retaining control as an authoritarian state. The government is actively working towards transforming the nation into a highly advanced economy, despite harboring concerns about the potentially disruptive nature of AI. Consequently, China is diligently fortifying its Great Firewall to effectively address the challenges presented by generative AI. Since March 2023, companies have been required to register any algorithms capable of making recommendations or influencing people's decisions. In July 2023, the government issued regulations mandating that all AI-generated content must reflect the core values of socialism, effectively prohibiting content containing anti-party sentiments. Subsequently, in September 2023, the government published 110 allowed services, and all unregistered algorithms are to be blocked, with their developers facing punishment. Later, in October 2023, a government committee released safety guidelines demanding detailed assessments of the data used to train generative AI models. In particular, a minimum of 4,000 subsets of the entire training dataset must be tested manually, with at least 96% of the tests being deemed acceptable based on a list of 31 safety risks. Unacceptable content is broadly defined as anything that incites subversion of state power or the overthrowing of the socialist system. To adhere to these guidelines, chatbots must decline 95% of queries eliciting unacceptable content while rejecting no more than 5% of harmless questions. The stringent regulatory approach has resulted in a slowdown in the adoption of consumer-facing generative AI in China. For instance, Baidu's ErnieBot, though ready for release roughly at the same moment as ChatGPT, was only introduced 9 months later in August 2023. Considering the swift advancements in the field of AI, this delay is certainly a substantial period. China's generative AI industry is in no condition to compete against the U.S., from consumer AI to enterprise AI. Given the risks involved in consumer-oriented generative AI, the Chinese government has placed much of its focus on promoting enterprise AI applications, which are much less prone to subversive individual behavior. Enterprise applications require access to corporate data, much of which is stored within companies. China's strategy involves transforming corporate data into a public service. Rather than owning the data itself, the government aims to control the channels through which the data flows. In contrast to consumer-oriented generative AI, enterprise AI encounters much fewer government constraints on development. Quite the opposite. In order to encourage companies to share data, China has implemented regulations to establish a national open innovation framework where the government and companies can collaborate on AI projects. Standardization plays a pivotal role in this kind of cross-company data collaboration to ensure seamless interoperability and quality. Consequently, China approached guidelines for open innovation in 2019 and for standardization in 2020. As we discussed in the previous section, data asymmetry has a deleterious effect on economic efficiency, and the existence of AI presents economies of scale with a solution to the chicken-egg problem inherent in data aggregation and algorithm training. China is beginning to focus on solving this core AI issue. The government is also actively encouraging the creation of data exchanges. Data exchanges enable businesses to trade productized information ranging from individual factory activities to sales data at specific shops. The exchanges provide smaller firms with access to knowledge that was once the exclusive domain of tech giants. This initiative aims to provide smaller firms with access to knowledge that was once the exclusive domain of tech giants. Chinese cities created the first data exchanges in the early 2010s, and now there are approximately 50 across China. Moreover, in August 2023, the government directed state-owned enterprises to look at the valuation of their data and incorporate this value into their balance sheets as intangible assets. This governmental endorsement is redirecting capital and labor away from consumer chatbots toward machine learning applications for businesses. Several cities, including Shenzhen, have announced substantial AI-focused investment funds to further fund data exchanges. For instance, the Shanghai Data Exchange was launched in 2021. It offers various data products, for example, information from the energy sector, which can be utilized to assess companies' power consumption and create alternative enterprise credit profiles based on absolute levels of activity. Another example where data exchanges are useful is in the development of self-driving cars. In 2022, approximately 185 million vehicles on Chinese roads were equipped with internet connectivity. China envisions mass production of semi-autonomous cars by 2025, which requires substantial data for companies developing self-driving algorithms. WICV is a data exchange addressing this need. WICV channels a car's data back to its manufacturer, fostering a closed-loop system where each car maker receives data from their own cars. However, WICV intends to become a marketplace where developers of self-driving systems can purchase such data from any car maker. To facilitate this exchange, driving data must undergo a process of sanitation, removing geolocation or biometric details that could compromise individuals' privacy. Coming back to the SES project, many in China consider it a failed project for the reasons we covered earlier in this chapter, but we see the reasons for failure heretofore as solvable. Additionally, corporate data exchanges may be applied to the SES concept to overcome its initial implementation and data aggregation challenges. In addition to evaluating the moral trustworthiness of businesses and individuals toward conformity to government mandates, the SES could perhaps first reach instantiation by assessing the likelihood of regulatory violations within the business sector, much the same way existing algorithms in the U.S. can accurately predict credit default. The government hopes that enterprise AI holds the key to China catching up with and potentially surpassing America in terms of AI, all while avoiding the complexities associated with potentially subversive AI-generated content. Economic slowdown on the road to AI supremacy. The widespread adoption of AI in China is undoubtedly positive for its long-term impact on China's economy. AI offers China a promising solution to reduce operational costs, create better products, enhance efficiency, and fund the same opportunities that we have discussed above in Chapter 22, collectively invigorating its economy in sustainable ways. This becomes particularly significant as China grapples with a noticeable economic slowdown entering 2024. China's current situation results from an unsustainable dependence on debt-driven infrastructure and real estate investment, leading to a property bubble burst. China's populace has been trained to treat real estate investment like a savings account, but it is anything but that. Reduced demand for Chinese exports and escalating living costs emanating from its real estate-centric issues further compound the slowdown. Concurrently, China faces a demographic challenge characterized by a declining population. Decades of the one-child policy have resulted in an aging society and a shrinking workforce. This demographic shift brings higher labor costs, increased social welfare spending, reductions in overall productivity, and, most significantly, a decrease in consumption. A country's macroeconomy is driven by productivity and consumption, so to overcome the current situation, China must strategically pivot towards stimulating household consumption, which has historically trailed behind GDP growth. Sustaining robust economic growth in the midterm will significantly impact the Chinese government's ability to allocate resources for AI, invest in AI research and development, and foster an environment attractive for private sector technological innovation. The success of these efforts will play a pivotal role in determining whether China can achieve its ambition of global AI dominance, or otherwise, the U.S. will continue to have undisputed hegemony. One world, two systems. While the degree of impact can be debated, AI as a technology is unique in that it is naturally oligopolistic. This will remain the case so long as, first, the data needed to build and train AI remains diffuse in the world. Second, as long as gathering, organizing, and deploying that data on a continuous basis confers a strategic head start to those large-scale enterprises or state-run cartels that can actually accomplish it. And third, while hundreds of billions of USD is needed to build global cloud infrastructure for the wide commercial and industrial deployment of AI tools. Success in developing and deploying key algorithms and assuring ownership of the data used to advance them and the cloud infrastructure to deliver it commercially begets a natural network effect, making competitive entrance more difficult by the day. Furthermore, the natural head start reaches an insurmountable point for the systems that reach AGI first. The overall scale of the macroeconomy, scientific and technical talent, and development resources, including financial, that are necessary to develop an AI industry of consequence, alongside the head start already in place, is likely to conspire to keep AI a two-horse race between China and the U.S. Our perspective of the AI Cold War envisions a future where two distinct and isolated AI ecosystems, led by the world's two preeminent economic and military powers, the U.S. and China, compete. As time progresses, other nations must choose which systems to align with. On one side, the U.S. AI ecosystem, hurtling towards an oligopoly led by large technology corporations, advocates for multiple systems and scaled databases, none with pure monopolistic properties. It also defends the safeguarding of individual rights, enhanced data privacy protection, and respect for geopolitical sovereign borders and the rule of law. Assuming that the U.S. does not go down the dystopian pathway, there remains a risk that it will do so, noting the natural magnetic pull towards socialism and authoritarianism inherent in AI as discussed in Chapter 23. Conversely, China's ecosystem will be led by the centralized government and resemble a cartel advocating for top-down, unilateral state control in partnership with large-scale enterprises, restricted information flow, and politically imposed constraints, leading to mass conformity but also pre-identification of socially subversive elements such as crime risk, e.g., social profiling. It also will look to drive mercantilist versions of trade with other countries and commingle resource access and military protection in a package deal. The emphasis will generally exclude generative AI and instead focus on industrial or enterprise AI applications, social credit systems, and regulatory conformity. This potential clash between two disparate AI systems embedded with different values while aligning broader military and resource access will likely impede the establishment of global standards for AI ethics and regulation. In Chapter 7, we discuss the importance of cloud players in disseminating the effects of AI on an economy-wide and global basis. We note that despite superior technology products, none of the American cloud players, AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud, has a market share in China. Outside China, the U.S. cloud giants are competing for markets globally with the CCP-controlled nexus of AliCloud, Huawei, Tencent, and Baidu, which dominate in China but have difficulty in external markets. Part of this difficulty has to do with trust and transparency, with the world having gotten wise to the CCP's lack of respect for sovereign borders and willingness to appropriate data. When you take China's technology nexus, you also take the values of its ecosystem. Still, there will be compelling reasons for alignment with the China camp in AI. Certain insulation versus competition domestically and internationally, pricing, at least equivalent technology to the U.S. with perhaps a leg up in industrial AI, commingling with military and other benefits including access to global resources when a zero-sum game is presented, and value alignment with China's top-down approaches. Not everyone believes in individual freedom and liberty, and continued uncertainty on the domestic political front in the U.S. creates some doubts about America's long-term values, e.g., what will the values embedded in U.S. AI be? As with any agency relationship in a commercial context, sometimes you just choose the other one, because you will be more important to them, get more attention, and have a fair shake. We do see the possibility that both Japan and Muslim-dominated countries develop their own systems in an effort to preserve their respective societal OS and avoid commingling of values. Japan has a unique culture, which we have talked about already, but in the case of the Muslim world, its unique political religious system is based on Islamic religious values. In the case of Japan, the U.S. lead in the cloud space will make it difficult for Japan to stand out as a separate global AI ecosystem and nearly impossible to export it as a full alternative. In fact, Japan may not want to export its AI system, and others will not want to import it. Japan has never known how to interact or lead in the world. We see the U.S.-Japan alliance persevering. Amazon's AWS has announced USD $15 billion additional investment in infrastructure in Japan. At the time of writing, Amazon and NTT Group continue to forge a closer alliance, and Japan maintains a long memory of being referred to as the dwarf to the south by the Chinese. It is possible that alignment between Japan and the U.S. camp will simply mean an arm's-length technology-sharing relationship, which in turn will enable Japan's AI autonomy and societal OS while remaining in the U.S. camp. As we conclude this, Section 4, the transition, we note that regardless of the camp with which any country finds itself aligned, pro-U.S. or pro-China, the world overall, under the unstoppable march of AI over the coming decades, is becoming more collectivist, less democratic, and more authoritarian, with the only differences among societies a matter of degree. While this chapter has been quite critical of China, I want to express my deep love and appreciation for the country. For the past 20 years, I have been learning Mandarin and can comfortably hold casual conversations with native speakers. Moreover, I have lived in China and had the opportunity to travel extensively throughout China. From the bustling markets of Beijing in the north to the serene beaches of Haikou in the south, from the vibrant city life of Shanghai in the east to the historical landscapes of Lanzhou in the west, and of course, the unique charm of Macau and my absolutely beloved Hong Kong. Most importantly, my love for China is profoundly personal, as I am married to a wonderful Hong Kong Chinese woman. My admiration and affection for China are immense, heartfelt, and sincere.